We all remember recess growing up in school. Recess was a time of day where you could have all the conversations that you could not have while in class. Recess is where you had the real conversations. And real conversations we're going to have. In each episode of the Recess podcast, I'm going to have real conversations explaining students and school. I'm David McGuire, and I'll be your host. It's recess time, y'all. What's up, everybody? Back again. Episode 32 of the Recess Podcast. I'm David McGuire. Welcome to the show. It's been about a month since I've been with you. Hope you guys miss me like I miss you, but I'm back with another great show. As we always do it, education on the Thursday night. I have a great guest with me. So as always, before we get going, drop in the comments. Let me know how you feeling, scale of 1 to 10. And make sure you like our Facebook page, David McGuire. Subscribe to the YouTube page at the Recess Podcast, and then follow us on Twitter, the Recess Podcast 1, the Recess Podcast 1 on Twitter. And we're going to have a good show. This is education on a Thursday night. We're going to have a good discussion about a variety of topics, including learning loss in students, state testing, exceptional learners, and then selecting the right school for your student. And as you see, I have a special guest with me who I'm going to let introduce herself. So Ms. Shaw, go ahead and introduce yourself to the Recess Podcast.
Hello. Thank you, David. I really appreciate you inviting me and allowing me to be on the show. My name is Robin Shaw. My main job is I'm the recruitment manager at the Oaks Academy. I'm also a licensed attorney here in Indiana and a justice advocate for the state of Indiana. And I'm on the board of the Children's Bureau, and I am also a Genius of Play ambassador. I love talking about school, encouraging children and families, and sharing my love for education.
Awesome. So we're going to put something on the screen. It's something that you've been doing. I want to make sure that the folks can learn about that. So we'll get that up on the screen right there. And just tell us what this is.
So this is the Genius of Play website, and I had the opportunity to write sort of a little Black History Month blog for them about teaching children to be unbiased with toys and play. And so I tell a little story about my parents taking me to Disney World as an adult and seeing the Black Disney princess, and I literally burst into tears. And it made me think about just how much we need to see ourselves represented everywhere that we go. I'm the youngest child, and yes, my parents did take me to Disney World as an adult, and I'll talk a little bit more about my mom in a minute. But it's really near and dear to my heart. Of course, being a Black woman growing up, sometimes in settings where I didn't see anyone look like me, and now there are so many dolls and toys, and just not Black Panther alone, winning a Golden Globe posthumously was so touching that all the little kids they interviewed. I don't know if you saw that, David. They couldn't name another. It was beautiful. The Foreign Press Association hasn't historically recognized a lot of Black actors, but they went to a school and they interviewed kindergarten children and they asked them, who's Meryl Streep? What's Queen's Gambit? And they were like, I don't know. And they were like, who's Chadwick Boseman? And they were like, Black Panther.
Oh, yeah.
It was really touching. So we need that growing up. We need that. We all know that now. And so I go out of my way to find these toys. And so when I found out that Genius of Play was interested in that, I was so touched. Janice Zegman, who's the marketing director and coordinator of that, was so excited. She just kind of rushed to put it out there. And I was just touched that the toy industry is recognizing toys that are made by African Americans, that portray African Americans in a positive light, and that they wanted to share this with everyone this month. So it's out there on geniusofplay.org. And so anyone who's interested in seeing that is on social media.
I love it. So again, we're gonna dive right in to our first one. So let's just talk about it. Let's just hit it hard. And you learning loss, right? COVID. Can you believe that? I think in 9 days, we'll be approaching a year since schools shut down. I think it was March 13th, 2020 when schools shut down. And so now as schools are back in, whether it's virtual, in person, a little bit of hybrid, and we're getting to that season, which we're going to talk about next, is state testing. And everyone's looking at research and taking data points on learning loss. So what's your thoughts, around this idea of like, how big of an impact is learning loss, you think, we're gonna feel over the
Oh
next
my
couple of
gosh.
years?
It's huge. It's huge, David. Not everybody is blessed to be at a place like Tinley, like you're at, or a place like the Oaks Academy, like where I am. And I know that both of our schools have worked really hard to prevent that and slow it down. But the reality is no matter who you were, there were days that my husband and I were like, sit down at the table with the computer and I'll check in
Hmm.
with you in a minute. So, it was hard. You're right. It's been a year. I almost get choked up thinking about it because at schools we rushed to prepare our families and get them laptops and get them online and get their books taken home. And the teachers at the Oaks were great and they did it. But the reality is when you're at home as a parent, you are struggling and you're looking at math you've never seen in 10, 15 years, and it's hard. And it's hard. And so, first, I would say for parents that it's happening to everyone, no matter what color you are, no matter what socioeconomic status you are, it is happening. How do you get in front of it? Is you got to dig in like never before. We were having a conversation in our office today. My boss, Angela Gray, who's phenomenal woman who's been at the Oaks for about 18 years and has grown children. She was just like, you wouldn't get a summer off. Her kids are grown. She said, you would be doing work. And we definitely emphasize balance at the Oaks, but there are bridge books that are available at the teacher store in Castleton. They're really cheap. They're like $8, $10,
Yep.
where you just want to sit down and have them do something every day and encourage them. You're going to catch up. We're going to get there. We're going to do it together. Get your snacks, sit down with them and
Hmm.
say, okay, we're doing this. We're going to catch up. And
Absolutely.
eventually they will. I think, that's the thing, is to just inspire hope into the kids and the families that we're all going to catch up. We're all there and we're all catching up.
Yeah, it's amazing how everyone's talking about how we can catch students up,
Mhm.
particularly Black and brown students. But it
Mhm.
didn't take a pandemic to let us realize just how far behind our students were, right? And so
Mhm.
while it is great that everyone is putting these initiatives, I think the most beneficial thing is that the federal government has allowed money, right, to
Mhm.
support learning loss. But what they don't understand is for many Black and brown families, right,
Mhm.
the COVID pandemic was
Mhm.
everyday life, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, look,
Mhm.
going in between a job,
Mhm.
struggling to make ends meet, that was not normal. The difference is, as you stated, COVID saw no color.
Mhm.
It saw no
Mhm.
socioeconomics. It saw no
Mhm.
education level. It hit everybody. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing, right? But when other marginalized communities are like, well, where was this help in March of 2019, in March
Mhm.
of 2018, in
Mhm.
2017, and so on and so forth? But when we think about learning loss for students, I think now what this has forced a lot of schools to be more creative, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, be creative with how you service all students. Be
Mhm.
creative with what is your intervention policy. Be creative with how you support teachers and support families. Have you
Mhm.
seen, maybe not just in the O's, but talking to other friends in other schools, how what different approaches has schools used to engage more families?
That's a great question. So I would say, number one, I want to honor something you said, that life didn't change. And in fact, I know a lot of people who, we were at home quarantined with our stockpile of snacks, and they were like, "I went to work every day, so what are you talking about?" So, you are right. For healthcare workers, for daycare workers, for the daycares that were open, police officers, these people
Mm,
were, working harder than those of us who were blessed to be in the safety of our homes.
yeah.
What I would say, David, you'll love as a school leader. You told me I could talk about my mom,
Yes,
and
you did.
I
Please
want to
do.
talk about my mom because I think she's awesome. When I was little, I thought she was mean and strict, but but
Yeah.
I love her and appreciate her more and more every day. My mom, Archie Ferguson, was Missouri Teacher of the Year in 2002. She's taught in St. Louis Public Schools. She grew up with a learning disability and she
Mm,
overcame that. And she was passionate about teaching Black and brown children in inner city St. Louis. She taught at Pierre Laclede, where my uncle was the principal long time ago before we weren't principals. And so I grew up, running around schools, and she just was relentless. She was just like, no, you know, uh, she didn't teach her family, she didn't teach us that anybody was going to do anything for you. It was quite the opposite. And I
mhm.
think that's, sometimes what we're missing, not having, our teachers to say, okay, you have this going on. the world is going to be really cruel. So what are you going to
Yes.
do about it? And she never let us have like any roadblock. Like we had to figure it out. We had to just, and I don't want to make it that simple, because I know that we need assistance and we need help. But there was a certain amount of, we're going to do this together. And so for parents, I just want to encourage them, because it's not easy. It's not, you're not always going to be able to find an answer or get help. Our children have had various learning struggles, and there were times when no one could tell us what to do or what was going
Yeah.
on. And we're going to every doctor, we're going to every place, and we had to figure it out. No one's going to love your child more than you. And
Mhm.
so, yes, the help is always needed, but for a certain, a group of us, it was like we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Failure's not an option.
And we have to do it, right?
Mhm.
My daughter's 1, so she's not a school age, but
Aw.
what I've seen is the resilience
Yeah.
of parents. And I've always said this, pre and I'll say this during and post pandemic.
Mhm.
You can't tell me that these parents don't love their children.
Yeah.
Just because they may not be involved the way we think they should be involved, or the measurement of involvement that other parents have. You can't say they don't love their parents. What we have to understand is that, imagine working every day or working 2 jobs every day just to keep your account out the negative, right? So like when you have that going on, you're working 2 jobs to keep the lights on, keep the water hot, to keep food in the fridge. I'm not going to be always as attentive to the principal or the teacher calling me or emailing me all the time. I'm going to do the best I can.
That's right.
But I'm entrusting you that this is supposed to be your wheelhouse. And what you can do is communicate with me. Call me, text me, send me emails, send me letters home. I'll have them, right? But just don't turn the communication off, right?
Right.
Constantly, and find other ways, right? Be flexible. Schools have got to be flexible. I think in the virtual setting, we learn how to be flexible because while we wanted our kids to be on live, we had to offer recorded lessons because a lot of kids did watch the lesson when parents got home who were still working. Or just with everything going on, you can't have 5 people pulling on the internet.
Yeah.
We realize bandwidth is not as strong as we thought it was, right? When you have 4 different people pulling on the same thing. And so we just got to have that flexibility.
We do. And David, like, I'm so excited about some of the stuff that's going on in Indianapolis. So I'm sure you have some families who are involved with the Edna Martin Christian Center. When your back is against the wall as a parent, like they all are, you need your village, you need your group, and there's no shame in asking for help. If your child is having trouble in any area, I guarantee you somebody at your church, somebody at your job, somebody can help do something. And so, when I say like be in the trenches, I don't mean be in the trenches by yourself. Edna Martin Christian Center has tutoring, they have meals, they have such a wide range. They have the Martindale Brightwood Education Zone, for example. They have a wide range of services available for families, and this is all the way from birth all the way up. And so if you're struggling, you can give them a call, and I'm just going to shout out Trina Boyd. She will help you figure out what services that you qualify for. And it may be that for a little while, if you're not getting home till 7, that's late to start homework. You might need to do an after school program or something like that. It's no shame in that. When we were little, David, we just had a key around our neck and you went in the house.
That's it. Or went to the neighbor's house.
Right. Right. There are older people at your church who are lonely. They love to probably, after COVID, when they get their vaccine, they love to probably just let your child sit at their kitchen table and do their work. So we got to like re-energize those villages for sure. Have those speed dial parents like, hey, we have all been there. Like I'm on Benford and there is no way in 3 minutes that I'm going to get to the Oaks Academy who can pick up my child.
Absolutely.
So, I definitely am an advocate of that, having a community and leveraging that support when you feel like you need it.
Yeah, the village definitely stepped up early in the pandemic with a lot of organizations and businesses were giving the meals, and not just giving meals to their particular clientele, but just saying we're opening it up, community and citywide, which is great because they have them in different locations. So if you do, because of the beautiful thing about school choice, and we'll talk about, select the right school, but if you live on the west side, but your school's on the east side, there was a there was a community center, a church, or somebody that was able to offer food services, right? Which was great. Same thing if you lived on the east side or lived on the west side, but with the school, or lived on the east side, lived in school on the west side, right? There was options everywhere. Downtown, school districts, right? At different schools said you don't have to attend this school to get a meal. We'll have a bus out here. We'll give out meals. We'll give out to the first 200 people that come. First come, first serve. That's what you need, right? That's the type of community we need. What I hope is when we get on the other side of this, that same village mentality sticks, not just in school, but in the community, because all of that will factor into the learning loss, right? It's going to take an entire city to come together, right? Continue with the e-learning lab that's open up to the entire city. Continue with some of the funding that organizations are offering schools, the CARES package. While we're getting that money and we'll have it for 2 years, right? Making sure that we put things in place that will last long when the money runs out, right? And making that impact. So.
And you were probably getting ready to go there. I'm going out of order. You asked about strategies, and I jumped around and didn't answer your question. So one of them, with the testing coming up, is to get the NWEA test scores and use that for what you can use it for. And so I know that testing is a really controversial subject. And I know people who work in standardized testing, like all the way up to the college level. And what they would say is, Tina Gridiron, who's on our board, had this beautiful statement. She said, I just want, while tests exist, for our, for Black and brown children to be able to use them to their benefit, because right now they still exist. And so they may go away in 20 years, which would be wonderful. But right now we have them. And one thing you can do when you get that NWEA score that I learned or that I read, don't just take it, and not, and I've been guilty. I'm preaching the choir. You put it in that file folder and you have it. But what a lot of parents don't know is that there is a detailed report that you can get from your school that will show you exactly where your child was weak and where they were strong. And so a strategy that a parent can use at home is, so I'm not beating myself over the head, is to get that report and find out what is the thing I need to work on. Because the whole score could be low because of just one area. If it's just multiplication, let me work on that. And then that takes some pressure off of where we are, and the child feel better too, that, hey, I'm not totally behind. It's just one thing that I need to catch up on.
Yeah, I think, and you said it, right? State testing is controversial, and I'm going to ask, I'm going to put you on the spot and your thoughts on it. But
David, I'm not going to answer.
Okay, but I'll tell you mine. Listen, it's a necessary component, right? Because how dare you say we're going to educate Black and brown kids with no point of measure of accountability.
Right.
And also, the misconception is, in one of our other podcasts last night, the AOS podcast, our guest, Dr. Mary Hemphill Joseph, said it's the traditional idea of what state testing is that has people alarmed. But what they don't understand is it's more about what you do after the test. What do you do with that data? And as you said with that NWEA, as a teacher, as a school, we can't just drop that in a file folder or just send that report home with a parent with no form of breakdown of what this is. If I'm a parent and I've never worked in the school, I have no idea what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a bar graph with some colors and some numbers.
That's it.
So send home that page where it details if your child is here, what that means per grade level and things like that. But also what you need to do with your students is take your students, sit down 1-2 minutes at a time and have that data conversation. I believe this, by the time students get in third grade, they should be able to articulate to their parents, to their teacher, to their classmates, to anybody else, what their skill level is, like what their reading level is. And the way you got to frame it is, regardless of where they score, you have to frame it in place that this is your score and how you're going to get better.
That's right. Yeah, to empower them to move forward. The other thing that people don't probably know a lot, or at least, I learned when I was helping with testing at the Oaks, was that there is a family toolkit on the NWEA website. So there are resources out there that parents can use for free. There's practice questions, there's little videos you can show your child so they know what to expect, all these different things that they can learn to do with the data that's out there for free. And it's like nwea.org/family toolkit.
And so when you think about this season and testing, and we know it's hold harmless, we know it's not gonna, right?
Like, don't look.
how are you guys at the Oaks talking to families about, hey, we know it may not count necessarily towards a letter grade for the school, but it does count for your student, because so we need as accurate as data as we can get. So how are you guys messaging that to parents and students?
So, David, you're not gonna believe this probably, but at the Oaks, the deal was when we started doing the NWEA is
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't change anything that we do. It's a classical
Mm,
school, and so our timeline follows our curriculum follows the timeline of Western civilization. So
okay.
it's possible that we're at a different point than a different school just based on the way that we do things. But we also didn't want it to change, what we offer, which is critical thinking, it's the trivium,
Mm-hmm.
it's logic. And sometimes those things translate to test scores. And praise God, they have for the Oaks.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no focus on it, I would say. As a parent, I
Mm,
can say there's times my child came home and said, I took the NWA today. I'm like, you did? and so that's, the blessing in that is that our teachers, we really try to free them up to teach. I mean, they do make sure the child knows how to use the computer and what the
mm-hmm.
NWA is and stuff, but our hope is that by building a strong foundation in early childhood with phonics and math skills in pre-K, K, and first, that they are so set up for reading success and for math success that they're just going to soar on
Mm,
those other grades. So they haven't done a lot of messaging. We focus on, just being, we call it I can, I am, I ought, I will. And so
mm.
it's sort of this, we teach them habits. We don't have stickers. Kids are like, I don't want to go to that school. There's no stickers, there's no charts. We sort of teach them that, learning for learning's sake. By eighth grade, I don't know how they feel. They're on to us. My son is
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I got you.
Right.
But by that time, they're fully students, and
Mm,
it just works. We are tremendously blessed. We're a Christ-centered school, and I just think God shows up every day.
mm. So while we're on there and that pivot, just briefly tell the folks who are listening, who will listen to it, just a
Yeah.
little bit about the Oaks Academy. So I kind of put your recruiter hat on and give us the the
I
1 minute spiel
will. Thank
of the
you,
Oaks.
David.
Uh
That's what
huh.
I do, so I love it. So the Oaks Academy was founded in 1998. We have 3 locations in downtown Indianapolis. Our first was the Oaks Academy Fall Creek, which is at 23rd and Park. That blossomed so much that it was always full, and praise God for families like mine. The Brookside campus was born in 2011, I think it was, and they started with pre-K, K and first, and now they are full and in their own location, 3092 Brookside Parkway North Drive. The head of school there is Kelly Altman, and they are full from pre-K through fifth grade. So one of the things that I do, and let me say before I go on, we have a fabulous middle school on 16th Street that's led by Laura Grammer. The Fall Creek location is led by Bruce Crawford, and our middle school gets students ready for high school and beyond. It is an amazing place. People walk in and they can't believe it's a middle school because everybody is on task and doing what they're supposed to do. But our kiddos going to high school all over the city, public and private schools, getting scholarships, getting awards. We're so very proud of them. But the focus is critical thinking. It's on being a great person, knowing who they are in Christ. It's a Christ-centered school, but it's not affiliated with the church. So we welcome all backgrounds, all religions, even people that don't go to church are welcome to come. But it is a wonderful, wonderful place. So David, flash my email address if anyone is interested in enrolling at the Oaks. I know we have a few pre-K spots left, and we're still taking applications currently. We just finished our application cycle, but please, please, please reach out to me if you have an interest at rshaw@theoaksacademy.org, and I'd love to tell you more about the Oaks.
There you go. That's what we call like a recess podcast commercial break. We just took a
Thank you.
commercial break. Absolutely. For
I
the
love the show.
for the Oaks Academy. So our next topic, we talk about learning loss and state testing. Let's talk about exceptional learners
Yeah.
and that. So especially, and let's put it in context of what we've been talking about as far as this learning loss in the pandemic. How much of an impact do you feel families with students who are exceptional learners, how much impact will they hit when schools shut down and went virtual and remote?
Yeah. So this is one of the when I reached out to you, Dave, this is one of the things that was on my
Yes.
mind and heart, because I have 3 children who are all over the spectrum of learning, and I think that families with exceptional learners, and so I know your show's been on for a while, and you've probably told them that means, very high scoring. Some are low scoring, but high ability. Like kids can
Hmm.
be everywhere. And so one of the things I'm passionate about is making sure that parents understand neurodiversity, which is like fancy new
Ooh,
term
yeah.
that's out there now, that just because your child isn't maybe testing well or has a struggle in some area doesn't mean that they won't be successful in school and in life. You have to get in there and find out what it is that they're great at and push them towards those things and help them just stay above water in the things that are struggles. So to your question, if you're at home and you have a child with ADHD, oh my God, sit down in front of a computer for 8 hours. David, I would have been ADHD when I was little.
I
My
think I
mama, yeah. So we
was.
didn't have medicine. We had sit your butt down. That's what we
Right.
had. So
Or else.
right. So it kept us on the straight and narrow. But it would be, I mean, today I would struggle to sit down for 8 hours. And so doing those strategies at home of letting them get up, using a bouncy ball, letting them take frequent breaks, that's okay. If that's how your child learns, that's what you have to do even at home. And the learning loss is going to be the same way. It might be at a different pace. And so making sure that you're not comparing, because it's so easy to fall into that trap of like, little Johnny is caught up. Why are you not caught up?
Hmm.
Like your child may catch up at a different level. And so to always be, that cheerleader in the corner, like you can do
Hmm.
I think is the biggest thing.
And you mentioned so you have multiple children on
Mhm.
different variations of the learning continuum, the learning
Yes.
spectrum. What is your support you get for families who are like that, right? If the oldest child is
Mhm.
extremely academically high and the
Right.
middle and lower kids are not so much, and they're like, and then they go to the same school. So teachers and schools like, well, brother A was really smart, and they try to compare the kids. How do you teach parents, coach parents,
David, you would have
support parents, right? Who sometimes the school is the one that compares their kids, and then the parent is like, well, why aren't you like that? And so, how do you tell
yeah.
parents? First of all, tell the school, right? Don't compare my child. Each child is different. So, how have you coached parents around having that conversation with schools? Because at schools, we can be guilty of that. That can be an
Oh
our
my
fault thing.
gosh. We all are. I mean, David, you're talking about lifetime of therapy, first of all. So I told you about my mom. I told you about my mom. My oldest brother is like the chief operating officer of some company out in California. My middle brother is a doctor. My mom said he cured COVID. I'm not sure if he did or not.
It's not his baby. He
And
cured
then it was
COVID.
me, and it was like that's a lot of pressure. And we did go to the
Mhm.
same school, and I'd walk in, and my maiden name is Ferguson, and they'd be like, "Oh, another Ferguson, yay!" And I'm like, before you get excited,
Right. Let me just tell you about this one. I'm a little different.
get to know me. Like it's hard. My oldest brother was a football star, and my middle
Mm,
brother was not.
right.
So the coach was like, "Oh no, you said your last name was Ferguson. What?"
Not the same skill. Yeah.
So I think it's really important. I'll tell you a quick story, David. The person who I feel like does this the best is my pastor, Eric Wiggins, and his wife Camille. They have 4 kids.
Hmm.
Kids are all amazing, and they're all so different. So they were running around taking every kid to every different activity and affirming them. And this leads into kind of the finding the school thing. But you're right, sending the message to the school. Hey, I would love to, and it may be having them have a different teacher than the other one,
Hmm.
so that teacher has fresh eyes. If that school has multiple sections, like we split up twins, we don't put them in the
Yeah.
same class at the Oaks. We try to see every child as an individual, made in the image of
Hmm.
God. But if your
Praise
school is
him.
still catching up to that, that's right, praise them, because
Hmm.
we need it. If your school's still catching up to that, that's definitely. But I think the biggest thing is you're gonna have to instill it in that child. One thing that I learned with my three, and they're 15, 14, and one. I mean,
Mm.
3 years old. So I have a
Uh-huh.
toddler too. She takes up more than her fair share of time. But 10 focused minutes with
Hmm.
each child does wonders, where you're just talking to them about what they like and what they do. Like no judgment, no comparison. Like, what do you want to talk about? So
Right.
my oldest son is into karting. He's great program. I want to shout out NXG coach Rod Reed, who's
Okay.
started Force Indy. I'm gonna have a black race car driver.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
IndyCar. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great program to get kids into math and science. But he's into that. And so on race day, we are there, we're in our shirts, we're dressed up, and we're doing race stuff. And then
Mm.
my middle son is into being speech and debate and going to space camp. So a friend of mine, Tina Gridiron, who I mentioned, we took the kids to space camp. We drove to Huntsville, Alabama.
Mm.
danger zone, right?
Hmm.
To go to space camp. But it was amazing. And, just to let him know this is your moment, this is for you. I want you to have an opportunity to do this. And so I think just having that time where you teach the child, because they look to us first, that I'm special and I'm unique and I don't have to be like him or her just because, they were first,
Hmm.
or whatever.
Yeah. Listen, I see as a school leader, right? I hear parents, they come in automatically comparing their child. I'm like, whoa, mm-mm,
Yeah.
mm-mm. Let that baby have his own shine or her
Mhm.
own shine, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I tell my teachers, right? If by chance we get like the sibling a grade below or 2 grades below, like when they're coming up, it's like
Mhm.
we're gonna look at it. We're gonna take this individual child for what they. We're not gonna compare them to their sibling,
Yeah.
good or bad, right? We're not gonna
Mhm.
assume that they're gonna be as smart if the older sibling is really smart. We're not
Right.
gonna assume that they may be, a little bit of a handful, right? We take
Mhm.
each
Mhm.
individual student individually because they are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we have to do, because what you do for kids when you do that, when you start comparing them, you
Mhm.
mentioned it, that causes anxiety, right?
It
Because
does.
now I have to live up to my older brother or my older sister.
Mhm.
I shouldn't
Mhm.
have to carry the weight of my entire family,
Yeah.
legacy,
Yeah.
right? Let me be my own person, and we got to support them in that. But
So
again,
true. Yeah.
I don't know why they do that. So
It's
when
just human tendency.
yeah, yeah, it is. It is. With the oats, how are you guys supporting families of exceptional learners during the time of COVID in the virtual setting? So did you guys do anything differently, or just kind of just move your current model just to the virtual setting?
So that's a good question. We were like all schools, like pandemic, what we're closing tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Okay, we're doing this. Our one of the great benefits is that we have small classes. So our
Mhm.
class sizes are capped at 18.
Oh,
And
nice.
so
Okay.
part of our motto is every child is known and loved. And so our teachers sort of have that class size because research shows that's sort of an optimal size when schools can achieve it. But they are in relationship with the children, but also with the family. So they're checking in, they're sending emails, they are just making sure the kids are okay. So they'll do things like drive past the kids' houses or write special notes to the children to say, hey, are you okay? Checking in with those who might be having more struggles than others. Because one cool thing about the Oaks that I love to share with people, that even though it's a private school, it was founded for the purpose of diversity. So there are mixture of races, a mixture of socioeconomic levels. So just because some people are doing well and they're handling it okay, there may be people who are having those struggles that we talked about, like I got to go to work, or whatever the case may be. So our model switched that when we first went home, it was kind of shifting it to online. And then this year we launched an online school that families had the option of
Awesome.
enrolling in. So they could choose to be online one quarter at a time. And some of our best teachers actually went over and helped teach with that.
Nice.
So yeah, it was massive undertaking,
Mhm.
but we wanted them to get the same Oaks education they would have been getting
Love it.
in school.
So, and this question is not specifically about the oats, unless you want to answer. How do
Mhm.
you see education change? Do you envision a lot more schools keeping a virtual option, even when we get
Mhm.
herd immunity? Do you
Yeah.
just see a lot of schools doing that? And do you see a lot of parents saying, my child just has done better in
Mhm.
this setting?
Yeah, a lot of people discovered that, and my
Hmm.
oldest son definitely did as well. I think having that release and that downtime of
Hmm.
like, I don't have to be on for 8 hours a day is really helpful. David, you're absolutely right. I think that people did not see this coming,
No.
but it worked well for a lot of families. To your
Hmm.
point, if you can swing it, I mean, a lot of people are like, I'm just thinking about my dad when you're talking about people working. My dad was a grocery store manager for Kroger and
Hmm.
then for Schnucks in St. Louis, and he worked till like midnight every
Hmm.
day. And I have to say, thank love you, Dad, for doing that, and Ferguson to pay up for all this school
Hmm.
that we were going to.
Right.
But it's just not an option for some people. But a lot of kids benefit from a lot of different learning models. So what's really exciting, David, this theory of multiple intelligences.
Hmm.
And as we kind of, roll into this like thought of like, how do you choose a school? There's a school for everyone. I had the great fortune of living in Japan.
Hmm.
And my children went to this school called Canadian Academy. And when I walked in, I was like, what is this place? Because it's the total opposite of the Oaks. Like, it looked like people scribbled on the walls, and it was just like kids walking around. And the first day I come pick up my kids, and they're like, "Oh, they're around here somewhere." And I was like, "You don't know where my children are."
Right. They're around somewhere.
What? It seemed crazy. As I got to know, some of the kids there, they were very mature. They were interested in their own things. They wanted to, make movies and write books and open stores, and they had a chance in that environment to kind of learn how to be creative and how to think their own thoughts. And so that was not something I had considered before as a viable option, but it is for some families. I mean, if you have a child with, ADHD, and there's no way they're sitting down for 8 hours a day. Why are you going to do that to them? Why are you going to do that to yourself? Why don't you find a way that they can enjoy learning instead of loathing going to school if you can? But again, that's a privileged position. Everybody can't just say, "Oh, okay, I'm going to homeschool for the next year." It's just not an option for everyone. So yes, I do think schools will keep an aspect of virtual learning. I know, for example, I think the NCAA is looking at it as athletes are traveling and things like that. How do we keep kids up to speed with all of the things they need to do? They all have phones and devices anyway. How much of this can we accomplish on the go?
On the go, absolutely. Yeah. So you pivot to it when we talked about selecting the right school.
I'm
so
you, David, because I
love it. I love it. I love it. So I mean, it's our final topic, and I want to just say, like, how do I select the right school? If a parent came to you and said, "Robin, I'm trying to find a school for my child," right? Like, how do I select the right school? What things should I look for? How do I make that determination? Because often what happens is if I'm not educated enough of how to search for a school, I'm going to go to the school that's in my boundary, right? Yeah. And that school might not be the best school that serves the needs of my student. And not saying that my student has like needs, like special education needs, but like needs of a small class size, diverse teaching, diverse curriculum, more kinesthetics, right? Just things like that. If I don't know those things, right? So how do you recommend people going around selecting the right school?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one of my favorite parts of my job, actually, is just talking to parents about what do you want, what are your options? And so that's always where I start is to ask, what is it that you're looking for? Of course, I'm going to plug the Oaks and I want them to come to the Oaks, but I also want it to be the right fit for them as well, because I think they'll be happier in the long run. So one of the things that we do at the Oaks is we have a lot of information sessions. We have 2 coming up, and you can check our Facebook page for those. I think it's March 11th and March 25th. But we're really just transparent about who we are. Classical education is structured, it's uniforms, and so if that's not appealing, then we want them to know. We really want families to make the best decision. I think it builds trust that we're not just trying to sell them, on something. The Oaks is a community. It's sort of like a lifestyle, choice to be there. And so we want people to really be happy with that decision. And I think people are willing to take a look, because we do, like a no pressure kind of, you want them to make the right decision. The other thing is, I think there's a realism part, like we said. Can you afford to pay for something or not? Can you drive or not? Do you need transportation? That's going to X certain things off of the list right away. The other thing, and this is another thing my mom taught me, is you have to go and stand in the school. And that's hard right now. But when you go in, like I could tell from your pictures at Tinley, and I said, "Oh, I want to come read," because I saw the people reading. You can see, you can see a lot through the pictures and videos that schools are posting. But when you go and stand in a school and you see how those teachers are interacting with those students, are you seeing the head of school walking around? Are they present, or is their door closed with the with the shade drawn? Are parents present? Are other families present at pickup and drop off? Do the children seem happy and joyful? Are they like, "Oh God, like somebody rescue me from this place"? You can tell a lot when you get a chance to walk into the building. The other thing I get to say, because I work at a Christ-centered school, is pray about it.
I say it anyway, and I might pray with you. You want to pray?
Right.
My Jesus follows me wherever I go, right? So I tell, listen.
Amen. Pray about it. Because
Mhm.
there's some stuff. I mean, I pray. I had to look at high schools for my boys, and I was just like, I don't know. They all sound good. They all look good, But as you said, what does your child need? There are some children who are great and budding athletes. You need to be at a school that's got a gym program and that
Yeah.
has sports teams and has, all of those things, which we do at the Oaks, wink, wink, that your child would need. Or if your child is an artist, do they have an art program?
Yeah.
They're taking so many of these things out of certain programs. Is there a music program? How is music taught? To really delve into. If you can see, my daughter is 3 and she loves, I think she thinks she's Beyonce or something. She's like dancing. She's like, I
Yeah.
need, music. I want to know how music's taught. Are there productions like that the children can try out for and be in plays and be in musicals? And so ask those questions, even if you have to email somebody like a list of 20 parents. I have parents who come in with a binder and they're like, okay, question 1. I'm like,
Here
but
we go.
it's fine. It's fine. It's your baby. And you want them in a school that's going to love them and serve them. We say every child is known and loved. It's going to see them. I love your shirt. Representation matters. Where they're going to see themselves. All that's really important. So it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. One thing families need to know, and I think this is true for Tinley as well as the Oaks, usually it starts a year in advance. So if whether you're trying to get into a lottery to get in your school of choice or whether you want to apply, a lot of parents don't know it starts a year in advance.
Yeah, you should be starting now, absolutely. But it's good because if you know that you're going to send your child to a school, right, you now have a year to say, hey, well, obviously, pre-COVID, this was a lot easier. Hey, do you mind if I, take a tour, observe some classrooms? Because if the answer is no, then you know it's probably not the school because they got something to hide. I know one thing I always said pre-pandemic, I was like, we're open book. And it was like, do I have to schedule date and time to take a tour? And I'd be like, nah, just
that's great.
Come in because I don't have anything to hide. Right? And there's nothing wrong with having those recruitment days, right? But some of those, it's like when you go on a college campus, you can go on there on the college recruitment day, but it's bells and whistles, it's the band, it's balloons, but that's not campus life every day. That's not school every day. So if your school is not a school that has students always greeting people when they come in, you're definitely going to get that when it's pre-scheduled because they're going to give you everything that you need. Get that school, see that school the same way you visit that house, right? When you're about to buy a house in the neighborhood, I want to see that neighborhood at 7 p.m. when all the kids are out because I need to know what I'm about to get, right? I need to see it then, right? So same thing with the school. I need to see the school on a random Tuesday at 11 a.m. And I want to see how teachers interact with children, how children interact with children. I want to see everything. I don't want to see it when you make it up. And so I always had this motto of we have nothing to hide.
Yeah, it's so true. I found the Oaks actually at dismissal. And Angela Gray laughed. I'm from St. Louis, and so we moved here 10 years ago. And I showed up at dismissal and was like, "I'd like to see the school." And fortunately, she was at the front and she showed it to me, and we just fell in love with it. But you're absolutely right. You see so much off the cuff when you show up at the time they think you're not going to show up. And they're just like, sure, come on in. I mean, that speaks volumes.
One of the biggest confirmations I think I got, one of the biggest that I got as a school leader is outside of arrival duty. It was cold. A couple years ago, I'm just saying what's up to the kids. And a parent walked up with the kid, said, hey, we were interested in enrolling our kid, wanted to meet with somebody. I was like, sure, you meet with us. Like, well, who are you? I said, I'm the principal. And they looked at me like, what are you doing out here? I was like, it's arrival duty. It's like a rival dude. I was like, yeah, it's my post. It's where I'm at, right? Because I want to be the first person to open this car door, say good morning to the kids, and I hope after they say good morning to me, they get 2 or 3 touch points before they even get to their teacher. Because like we don't have buses, so parents drop off and pick up, which I always say is a different type of commitment. Because whether it's you or you got to find somebody to get your child, that's a different type of commitment. So you can't say that parents not involved because they get that child to and from school, but it's important that they see this. So when a parent saw that their principal's outside opening the doors, and then I walk in the building and there's 3 other people that's saying good morning, even before the kid gets to the teacher. If a kid comes in and not having a not so good day, there's probably 2 or 3 adults who's going to ask them, hey, what's wrong? And give them some words of encouragement. before they get to the welcoming arms
Mhm.
of their teacher. And for parents to see that, like you said, the only way they're going to see that is if you just pop up.
Yep. Right. In the morning or the
them.
afternoon to just come and see what's going on.
Pop on up. So as we kind of wrap up, you did just spill the oaths. Anything else you want to leave folks with? It can be about the oaths, about anything you do. Anything. I call this section "Final Thoughts."
Final thoughts.
Yeah.
So final thoughts. I think we are moving into an interesting part of era of our history. As African Americans, where education is like so important again. Not that it ever went out, but when we were growing up, our parents just kind of made it like this is what you have to do. This is everything. And I think right now, kids are being inundated with so much junk. I mean, my kids are on YouTube and TikTok and all that stuff. And so I get on there to see what they're looking at. And it is just um, absolute craziness. And so
Crazy. It is. 100%.
it is. And they're just, they're feeding on it constantly when they're home, and a lot of schools like the Oaks don't allow them to do that during the day. But I think the time we spend right now with them, teaching them about this moment in history, number one, and also just reemphasizing the importance of education and all that went into um, getting us to the point where we have choices. Like that wasn't even a thing, before Brown versus Board of Education. And so that's why I want to talk about my parents and my mom a little bit, because I think that we're at the point where people don't remember. I know you were kind enough to put that little Obama plug.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. Come on, you gotta give it to the folks.
Man.
BO, come on.
I know it was amazing. So for those that didn't read it, my constitutional law professor at the University of Chicago was Barack Obama, and it was before he was president, but it was right before he became a senator. And one thing I tell people is he's just as smart in person as you see on TV. He was exactly the same. It's kind of eerie, but just that history, of like that happened. Like my boys grew up with a Black president. They were in strollers when he was elected, and they knew no other thing. But I remember working with a gentleman who's now passed away at when I used to work at Harrisdale State University. Go HSSU in St. Louis. Is a historically Black college.
HBCUs, yeah.
And that's my heart to this day. And they, I remember he said he'll never get elected. It'll never happen. This man, he was, African American professor, and he was just like, I'm sorry, it's not gonna happen. I'm like, come on, like I'm all excited. I got my signs and everything. And I think that he just, because of everything he had been through, he just didn't believe it would happen. So it was a really emotional moment for everybody there. And I just think, we have to teach kids that a lot of blood was shed for us to sit in these seats, both you and I, David, and our kids. And so we can never lose that importance that your education means something and that you need to dedicate it to someone else. So I was so proud to see Professor Obama become President Obama.
Right.
Mind blowing.
Texting your classmates like, that's the guy that graded our assignments is now the president.
I literally went to my transcript and was like, oh my God, his name is like actually on my transcript. Nobody's going to believe this. I got to save this. But you know what was so funny, David? I got a chance to see him. He came to St. Louis and he spoke to HBCU, so Harrisdale went. And I ran up to the front and I was like, you were my teacher. And I just said, I'm so proud of you. And you're not going to believe what he said. He said, I'm proud of you. I was like,
come on, man.
Right. I'm in a puddle right now. I'm crying. But that's who we are as our African American teachers and leaders. And those who work with African American students, because the Oaks, we don't have all Black teachers, we have a mixture, but they're all people who are committed to teaching diverse populations. But that impact, I can just picture you out there, David, with your students, that impact of them seeing you, them seeing me, them seeing my, boss, Angela Gray, like it's just, we're everything to them, to some kids, or their only image of what is all this for?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that just, that warms my heart when I think about that. So thanks for bringing that up.
Absolutely. I tell people, for this, right, we are only as best as the least of us,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
we have to make sure that what is the least of us is also as great, right?
Mhm.
And when you think about school
Yeah.
and any form of the role you play in a school as an
Mhm.
educator, whatever, we have an obligation, right,
Yeah.
to our children, but we also have an obligation to those that came before us. And I preach, to my fifth and sixth graders a lot. I get on my soapbox and I tell them about how when they don't do their homework, when they don't take school serious,
Yeah.
when they take for granted, right, the education that they're getting for free, I kind of show them the images of those that look like them that walked on the school grounds.
Yeah.
You see these lines and mobs of white folks that threw things at them, spit at them, hurled racist comments towards them, and they just kept trucking, right? And they went to school and they had no choice but to be the best. Even with their best, still didn't get any recognition. And here you are at a school with next to white and other Black and Hispanic students with a white or Black teacher or Hispanic teacher, and no one is hurling anything at you. No one's throwing rocks at you when you walk up to the school, and you take that for granted. You don't do your homework. You don't go home and apply the things that you learned in school, right? And my college professor, Central State University, historical Black college university, she would always tell us, she was like, "I'm not going to fail you. I'm just going to tell you how trifling you are." Because it's real trifling for you.
That's why representation matters. Because
right?
Sometimes you need to hear that.
It's real trifling to you. How dare you, when people died,
That's right.
as you said, bled, cried, and died for an education, and none of that's happening to you, and you take it for granted. How dare you not come to class? So I tell them, how dare you not do this assignment? How dare you not take these notes? Right? How dare you not give your best? Right? Where, our ancestors on the plantation got their eyes cut out for learning how to read. No one's going to do anything to you for learning how to read.
Right.
How dare you not put the effort towards it? And right, we have to have that real conversation with our students, right? That's the type of pressure they need. And it comes from representation. I'm going to say it to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to, and it's the same conversation I have with the parents. I said, listen, we got to hold our kid accountable.
That's right.
Yeah, and I say it, we got to hold our kid accountable. Because the moment they walk in that school, right, between the hours of 8 and 4, they are my responsibility. And I tell my teachers, and I leave this, and people know I've said this on the show a lot. I said to the teacher, when you stand in front of that room and you look across in those seats, that's someone's most precious gift that they have in this world.
Right there.
And you better do everything in your power to educate them to the best of your ability, because they are giving you the most valuable thing they have in this earth.
Yeah.
And you better remember that. So when you walk in here and you had a bad night, I'm not as sympathetic, because this is someone's whole world in this seat. Yeah. And we signed up for this, right? Because we don't care if our doctor had a rough night. If they're doing surgery on me, I need you to have your A game, right? You're a lawyer. Right. I don't care that you had a rough night last night. We walk in this courtroom, I need your best.
Right.
So regardless, and the anti-teacher, or the people that think I'm anti-teacher, are going to get on me for this. But I don't care. Right? When you sign up to be a teacher, that's what you took on. Just like a doctor does, just like a nurse does, just like a lawyer does, right? Just like the construction person that's building your house. You don't want them to be an inch off on your measurement.
Right. The whole thing fall down. And it's a partnership. That's the partnership that you can have, with your teachers. They know that you're saying it in love, and your families know that you're saying it in love, because you want everybody to be at their best. That's the only way that this works, to bring the whole thing full circle, is when we're all doing our part, like you said, whatever that looks like for you. Doing your part in this, or it's not gonna work. We do have to keep pushing for the thing I forgot to mention with exceptional learners, for example, is if your child has a 504, IEP, or ISP, all these letters and numbers, it's confusing, the reports, and how do I get it, and all of that is pushing, to whatever it is. It is okay to go to the teacher and say, I do not understand this. Explain it to me. And what am I entitled to with this? Some children are entitled to breaks,
Yes.
and making sure that they're giving those breaks. Hey, when you see him start twitching, he needs a minute.
Needs a minute. Absolutely. Yes. Yes,
Before we have a
indeed.
situation.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's a great partnership that we
Absolutely.
have with our families.
Well, listen, Rob, I appreciate you for coming on and joining me. This
I
has been
appreciate you. I'm coming
so
to
much.
read at Tinley.
Yeah.
We're going to
Hey.
see you.
And that's open invitation. Our kids love to read, but I'm gonna close out, and as I always say, create the platform, control the conversation, change the culture. Thanks, everybody. This has been episode 32. Catch me next week for episode 33 with Teach Indy. They're gonna talk about the Educators Conference coming up. So until then, have a great week, and I'll see y'all next week.